The poor woman's got to walk around with these bazoongas. I don't like this. I can't get through the door without staring straight into her arse.
Every once in a while, something comes along that changes your life forever. You know, a moment that just sticks with you from how significant it felt. Something you can recall down to the last detail. Your first kiss. Sloppy drunk at some frat party in one of the worst states to live. Honestly, I can't even tell you her name. Just that first experience of tongue. Tastes like nothing you'd ever initially expect. Your first car. The 2002 Nissan Frontier. That I drove into a mountain because of some dirt on the road. To this day, I'm still suffering from the effects of the concussion. The first time you got read your rights. 1997, after pocketing a pack of Pokemon cards from the Super Target, ruining the community in the projects. Remember Super Target? I still remember the face of the store owner who turned me over to Officer James Avery. It would then ruin my future job prospects, turning me into the Wendy's worker I am today. It's nice to reminisce on these things sometimes. This has nothing to do with Haydee 2. I just wanted to share. Back in the day while I was diligently studying for my final exam to get my master's in petroleum engineering, being the first in my family to escape welfare, a video of a curious robot showed up in the feed. I can't quite put my finger on why, but I was pretty invested in the way this particular character was climbing up walls, and how she wasn't really advancing anywhere. The video was simply titled Haydee. It seemed to be some kind of tech demo, but to my complete surprise, this footage was from a game that was not in its development stages. It was from one that was completely done. Needless to say, I closed up my books, failed to report to class the following day, and never looked back. I can't because there's really no windows from where I work. But Haydee proved to be something every man could want after 7 p.m. and 8 shots of Crown Royal. An engaging puzzle game which challenged my spatial awareness. It had some other aspects I wasn't too crazy about. But for a one-off title with a protagonist that simply couldn't exist in the climate of 2016 AAA games, it wasn't too shabby. 4 years passed and the gaming climate, at least in the AAA space, became even more hostile to certain character archetypes. Really pushing for a new look, except outside of the West. And this shit just got a sequel. Like, alright man, fuck it.
I haven't had Red Bull in like a week.
Haydee 2 is essentially rigged in the third-person shooter format. You watch your character over their shoulder, or as close as the camera likes to get, as they perform whatever action you tell them. Unlike its predecessor, which utilized some basic jumping to craft more puzzles in the given area, Haydee 2 restricts everything to ground level, taking this core concept away from the original. This aligns Haydee 2 closer to a classic survival horror game, where the protagonist must explore an area infested with enemies to make their escape. The only thing Haydee can do is run, gun, and crouch, unless you modify more of her original skill set back in. With the limited move pool, Haydee's gameplay mainly comes from the lock and key puzzle solving. You explore until your progress is stopped by a locked object, then explore somewhere else to find the corresponding key to open up the area. Like its contemporaries, the area she has to explore isn't terribly large. She's in a single facility divided into 6 areas. The main distinguishing feature between them is the color of the walls. This design falls in line with the first game, and more or less makes sense given the context of a research facility. The visuals wouldn't be drastically changing in this sex factory from a lab to a room with overgrown vegetation, the lava room, or the aquatic zone, the moon.
Checking. Access
Checking?
denied.
Fuck you. Yeah, this makes sense, but it's a shame that the small development team couldn't get more going along in this regard. Compared to the first game, it's a drastic step up in detail, but there's still really not much differentiating each section. There's just far more objects here to help create clutter in the geometric style rooms. I think the best areas are when the dark undertones of the facility are displayed. The rooms showing slasher construction on a grander scale, the ones where you see other Haydees with a helmet on being programmed, These make me ask questions about what the facility is actually for, but even those are restricted due to the game using the same room types for the entirety of the map. I'd like to see this concept of a sex robot making facility get more of a budget behind it so this economical design doesn't have to be utilized. The maps in the facility are labeled Engineering, Habitat, Administrative, Medical, Security, and Technical. The items found in some rooms help them feel like their own space, but if I colored some walls any different, you'd be forgiven for thinking it belonged to another spot on the map. Habitat seems to be more of a public area where either the employees or randoms come to watch their sex robots at work. You could take a lot of inspiration from different styles at nightclubs to help it feel like its own segmented space, maybe one that you wouldn't guess is connected to a massive facility, but then you go through the back and the design shifts more in favor of a lab setting. Admin could take inspiration from different office styles, really swap around the interior decorating. You could possibly have several floor levels which get more lavish the higher you go up. Engineering could stick to a lab look with their rooms more in line with their intended purpose. Have assembly lines, maybe we could watch the programming in action. Get a glimpse at the body horror that is shoving a woman's cerebral cortex into a false body. If we're really getting bold, we might want to see the failed attempts with more than just a corpse. There's a lot of potential with this setup, so I hope the team can continue to push the visuals. While I hold out hope for more in this regard, it's likely the visuals would help to disorient players as they move through the facility.
Okay, wait. Did I already go in there? Is there people right there? No, okay, I came from that way.
In a world where this exact map was made with every room dripping with AAA expense, this would likely help navigation by landmark. I only have its contemporaries to point to, but having rooms with vastly different art direction definitely helps me recall location more consistently, rather than just trying to remember which of the rooms with the lady getting penetrated had the item I needed. The homogeneous visuals combined with the ways the facility loops in on itself goes a long way towards disorienting the aimless player.
I couldn't get to the same location again because I already forgot on my way. Nice.
Well, this, and the nature of how Haydee 2 does its lock and key puzzles. Unlike its contemporaries, which would switch up its type of locks with mundane items, Haydee 2 more or less sticks to doors. There won't be a piano that you find in one room that you need sheet music for. There won't be plants that need to be killed. No jewels that need to be placed in pictures. No bees blocking your way. The closest thing Haydee 2 does to this is the hospital level with poison gas, but that just requires mask wear for the player to be able to explore like normal. Granted, these are fashioned in a way that certain items simply act as keys. You won't find the spade key, which has access to several rooms. You find a wrench, which can open a distinct door type. You don't find the helmet key, you find the screwdriver, which opens up vents you can T-Rex walk through.
Yeah, boy.
I don't want to crouch. I don't want to see this. You like that?
Judging, you're so
You looking at this ass? I need a weighted blanket for my lap. I'm hard. Help a brother, man. Trying to see some titties.
Yeah, porn cards are here to substitute the classic key, but these aren't the only type of door lock. The main difficulty here is spatial awareness, the ability to keep tabs on door types, and understanding how the map connects together. Well, that would be all, but I am excluding the items themselves from this equation. See, this game doesn't tell you, like, anything. It just leaves you in a room, says it'll be back at 7, then it proceeds to fuck off while you're left to fuck yourself. Items you pick up have no description, and doors you come across don't indicate what will open them unless you're on a modded map where the owner was feeling generous. Your only context clue that something can be interacted with is that an object highlights when looked at. The most generous thing done with items is the large range at which Haydee is able to see them on screen, despite not directly looking at them. This assists with some pickups that are tucked away in bins and corners, but figuring out what item can access which door type is wholly on the player. Most of these are easy to figure out, like a crowbar being used to pry wood planks. But I didn't really associate the wrench with the metal door lock by first observation. Like, I was able to assume a crowbar probably existed somewhere on the map just by observing the planks. You do find the wrench next to its applicable door type, so it's not an issue. I just didn't think a wrench would be the required key by looking at this door lock. Without knowledge of Haydee 1, I wouldn't associate the screwdriver with the vents either. In that game, it's the first tool you find, and the vent is placed right next to it. There's nowhere else to go to advance, so the level design is basically stating the screwdriver opens vents. I like the way a vent is set aside to the first crawl space to indicate that vents can be removed, but by the look of it alone, I wouldn't conclude a screwdriver was somewhere on the map to remove others like it. No screws on the side or nothing, it's just a vented square. This time around, the mandatory tool you learn is the pliers, as you physically can't advance the game until you understand that they deactivate mines.
Throw something at it.
What? I didn't even get that
You
close.
didn't get that close.
Yo!
This is critical since mines are used in places where the player needs to cross, sometimes out of your immediate field of vision. That and the consequence of death can mean a lot of progress undone. What was that? That's not fair! Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's one thing to try your items against a door or a box you can't open over and over, and another to have to redo sections of a game you may have just spent hours wandering around in. Of tools to force players to learn, this is definitely the right one. Once you're familiar with the game's terms of service for items, you'll likely end up trying random tools on highlighted objects if you don't know their purpose. The ones I put my money on are randomly selecting tools to open the orange chests, and randomly selecting tools on the remote control, motion activated doors, and power node doors. The player who has Haydee 1 under their belt can sidestep some of these, but I'd be impressed if they didn't try a random tool on a random item at least once. While some things aren't straightforward, that's not to paint the picture of a complete lack of intuitiveness for all the items. If a player is paying attention, they can successfully deduce what to do a good deal of the time. A good example being this player remembering there was a hand icon after finding the saw. Once they found the saw, they actually recalled that there was a morgue and went to the body to cut off the hand. He's so proud of himself! He's so proud of himself!
Okay.
Oh!
Okay, now I just gotta go find a bunch of...
He's getting it. Unfortunately for him, there are two hands the player can acquire, and one of them is completely useless. He just so happened to pick the wrong body.
Huh? Okay, what?
Oh!
What? I'm so confused.
Out of the item pool of 26 different types, excluding guns and ammo, I would say only 4 of them lack the clarity of the other items. I already went over why the screwdriver doesn't make much sense to immediately associate to a vent, and joining it is the gas neutralizer agents, which can be found far before you need them. Until you get to technical, you'll have no idea what they're for. I'd also include the weapon upgrade cases, though after watching other players I may be alone on that one. I try to find an item to open its contents, and because you can't combine items in the save box, I dismissed weapon cases on weapons entirely. Lastly, we have this device for spreading open that coochie. Now, this game has a lot of little references in it, and I guess it also had a reference to the survival horror game trope of using an obscure item to solve a puzzle, but we're not going to be tying a bent needle to a strand of hair then shoving it down a drainage hole. Oh no. This game's one puzzle that's pretty much a dick and makes no sense goes to this sex device used to pick up a key card down a shower drain. The key card down the vent is pretty easily missed, and you're unlikely to associate this tool for this specific spot. Aha! How the fuck was I supposed to see this?
How does Tweezers open this?
No,
Oh,
Tweezers
because you have to
just
pick
helps
it
us
up
grab
through the freaking...
it.
Oh,
Yeah, sure, why
For
not?
the rest of the items, the telegraphing is remarkably good. Pliers are next to a mine and progress is halted until they're understood. The wrench is near the door it unlocks. The box tool is next to one of the cases you've been seeing around the facility. The lever you need to use on another lift is visibly in action before you pick it up. The USB is on a desk near a port. The remote control and Wi-Fi receiver are in the same room when discovered, and you can't advance until you understand how it works. The night vision can be associated to technical if the player wandered down to early areas of that floor. Door cards being colored and locks being colored makes their association surprisingly natural. The door button can be associated to the empty holes. The motion deactivator is found in action and you're immediately told what it's for when you grab it. This is also true for the power nodes. Bolt cutters and locks on boxes are an easier association to make, as is the knife on tape. The hand switch is easily associated to the hand.
Why isn't this working?
This weird black computing box is easily associated to a lock with its picture. This is also true for the wristband, and ammo canisters have a poster explaining the end product. For a game that says absolutely nothing, a lot is said with common sense design, and it's one of the things I greatly respect about this game. Unfortunately for the player, saying nothing also means that one of the survival horror tropes, the item being discarded after it's no longer needed for use, is left at the cutting room floor. If you think about it for longer than not at all, it's nonsensical how the player character would know they're done using an item in their inventory. This is just a courtesy done for the player to save them space. Haydee 2 denies that courtesy and instead plays the situation completely straight. The only way to know you're done using an item is to have knowledge of the game's map. This actually makes for a surprisingly engaging item balancing act on replays, but a first timer likely won't take kindly to having to walk around with extra items they don't need, especially given with how storage works.
I need to deposit, like, some shit.
You may do so.
How do you do it? I don't need these, do I? What can I get rid of? Screwdriver? You don't know? You don't want to say shit?
Haydee is a third-person shooter after all, so she'll likely be carrying at least one firearm and ammunition. She can naturally only hold stacks of 40 rounds for handgun ammo, and stacks of 20 for the assault rifle and shotgun. There's one more ammo type, but it's completely irrelevant. It's not too uncommon to have this stuff flooding several slots in your inventory, and without the expansions, this can make exploration a chore for the first-time player. There has since been mods eliminating this part of the design, but the more I play this game, the more I think that these choices were all deliberately made for the niche crowd that enjoys replays. I'll elaborate on that a little later, but back to item storage. Haydee 2 pretty much functions identically to a classic Resident Evil game. It doesn't matter what she picks up, big gun or coochie structures, it takes up an entire slot. Where classic Resident Evil capped out at 10 slots with an expansion, Haydee 2 allows for 16 on easy mode and 12 on hard mode, still higher than most classic Resident Evils. 0 comes close with 12 since you have 2 characters with 6 slots, but Haydee is definitely more generous to the player in this regard than classic Resident Evil ever was. At least if you're the type who explores. And it doesn't pull that crap of big items taking up 2 slots either. On the combat side of things, Haydee 2 is definitely lacking the mark of a top tier third person shooter. It has 2 whole enemy types, their biggest positive being that they're used wisely in conjunction with the level design. Target practice here is either a mutant man or a sex robot with knife hands. These are basically palette swaps of enemies in Haydee 1, and the roles are more or less the same. The mutants move slow and hit hard. A hug. Don't give
He's coming
me
behind
a
you,
hug.
Harry. You gotta...
And the slashers move quickly and hit fast, but not as hard. Oh, he's... Get up.
What?
Wait, I got
What?
knocked on the... When used in conjunction with one another, it creates a basic situation of target prioritization. On their own, slashers are usually used for ambush, either after grabbing an item, or just simply lurking out of sight around a corner. Yellow.
What? What? Oh! Run!
And the mutants are used like classic zombies in Resident Evil. They move slow and can be avoided consistently, but their existence means you can't explore the space in peace unless you pay the price of ammo. You won't have much until the late game when more enemies are dispatched at you, or you have a mastery of the map, in which case you have a high damage dealing handgun right off the rip, and that pretty much can carry you through the entire game. The way they stun lock and block Haydee is pretty cheap if you manage to get boxed into a corner. Sometimes that shit is just a death sentence in the early game.
Well.
No! But besides that, yeah, they do their jobs. Only time they ever got fucked AI-wise is with mods. Doesn't really have the budget for the flashier set pieces, but for what it's utilizing, it's functional. Hear that, Lara? Functional. Now that we're done tangenting on items and enemies, let's get into the thick meat of this game. And that's the exploration and puzzles.
Okay, so last night we're playing Haydee, right? Of course. Of course a man introduced to the game is gonna be stowing for a later blow-in on his own Joe. So I'm talking about J-O-N, as in Joe.
Oh my god.
But this man couldn't Joe because he passed O, as in passed out. So, what's a body to do with so much sexual energy? That's right, jizz in your pants.
So Haydee 2 is mainly locked doors and spatial awareness. That's where we started before we went off about items and shit. If most tools you find just open a different type of door, then the main challenge here is 1. Keeping tabs on where you saw what, and 2. Repeating the lock and key process until you're on that helicopter. The game's strongest suit is the myriad of ways this can play out. This is achieved simply by just spreading out similar door types in different areas and having the map link into itself across multiple floors. But the spots they're placed allow for a wide variety of different routes. Due to the sheer amount of potential paths the player can take, gradually unlocking the facility is one of the aspects that actually improves the more the player understands the map. If replays are your thing, and challenges are your thing, then plotting optimal routes can be a rewarding experience. Going from wandering around aimlessly at the map's mercy to actively routing your path based on your understanding is one of those niche things that'll probably go unappreciated by many after they completed the game once. Honestly, this type of optimization usually falls to the hands of a speedrunning community, but the game utilizes its challenges to encourage this type of play. There's one for handgun only, and with the correct routing you can come out with rounds to spare. There's the obligatory speedrun challenge, which will force you to shave off sections of the game that are optional, one for beating the game without saving, and one for not using storage. This is honestly one of my favorite ones. To do this as quickly as possible under non-mod circumstances, you have to calculate your route and the number of kills you're going to make in between each pickup. You have to grab and use items, then drop them in places you naturally double back to. To do this effectively, you need to be certain that you won't require the item on your way to the next major pickup. You also have to restrict yourself on the ammo you grab since you don't want a situation where you run out of inventory space. If you're nuts, you can manage this without picking up any expansions either for quicker completion. The player can also challenge themselves by only using certain guns, only using mines, 100% pickup runs. All of these have different optimal routes. Challenges are also used to encourage exploration, the big three being cases, magnets, and notes doling out information on the game's story. The hardest one in this category to find is easily the cake, since it requires you to remember a locked door that you pass by, and it only opens past a certain point towards the end of the game. No telegraphing at all. Usually game achievements are something stupid like doing shit in the game you were going to do anyway, but besides the two you get for beating the game on their respective difficulties and dying, these ones seem to facilitate challenge replays fairly well. The only ones not doing so are in the silly category of challenge, like locking yourself in a room, or shooting a guy that's falling down, or ending my life where I began. Once the map is understood, Haydee 2 works very well with replays. And naturally, this means that only a niche group will enjoy it for those qualities. As a one-time game that you solve, it's an entirely different experience. Yes! And then we come through here!
Okay, what room is
Oh
this?
my
What-
god, it's just the fucking teal room next to the store. It's literally just downstairs. Oh my god. Oh
notice-
my god! This game does lean on locked doors, but that's not to say that it's always as simple as putting an item to a lock and proceeding forward until another locked door. The types of locks used actually help facilitate some brain teasers, the main two being the remote control doors and the power node doors. These two door types will either check your understanding of the map or your ability to wander into the right solution by luck. When you initially find the remote, you see its effect immediately if you use the item right then and there. To proceed, you have to enter through another door that you saw previously locked, so the game's demonstrated that this item has applications across multiple rooms. Since you need to hit a switch past the Wi-Fi pad, you're ensured to associate it with your remote dildo. And for extra measure, you're locked in the switch room if you try to take it with you, so the player should know that they can set this pad on a button and control it remotely. The other place this pad exists is in front of a window. The switch is already in place, so either the player screws themselves and picks it up before finding the remote, or they use the remote on it and see it alters a door. Now they have to find what door is open with the press of that switch. If they find the correct room before finding the remote, they'll be cut off from grabbing the bolt cutters, so they basically have to figure out the switch and remote need to be used to link the path. When you're already disoriented from level design, this type of puzzle is pretty tough. And this setup of opening a path and having to loop back to an area from a different spot is why Haydee is likely to cause a lot of roadblocks for players. Usually an area will begin with you solving some easy puzzles within that space, and then the difficulty rises and caps off with having to leave that space and return from another area. These loops are why this game is punishing to the one-time player and very rewarding to the folks who enjoy replays. If you are one of the niche players I'm talking about, compare your first time in Technical to the time where you were able to breeze through it and clear the entire game in under an hour. Your first time is likely the peak definition of struggle in your life, and that's even for those of you that worked at a barbershop in downtown Harlem. The night vision visuals and having to move power nodes to several doors likely meant you were walking around in circles. With these visuals, it's even harder to see how the Wi-Fi switch can help you bridge a necessary gap for completion. Once you have the map layout in your head, the level of disrespect you can show your past self is off the fucking charts for just how few trips you need to make in the space. It's a refreshingly challenging puzzle game, and to top it off, it lends itself well to the niche player who enjoys speedrunning/challenge running these types of games. You go from cautious play due to the use of mines and enemy ambushes, to calculating every last shot you're going to take and how to best manage your inventory. But you've probably been wondering, who is this wonderful protagonist you've been looking at for the last, however fucking long this video is at this point? This is a narrative that's only as intrusive as you make it, since everything happening here is found with notes. Without any cutscenes or in-game set pieces, it's pretty much up to the player to piece together what's going on here. Some of the level design assists, but the bulk is done with the notes. Definitely one of the better storytelling methods to not interrupt gameplay, but it's pretty bare bones. From what I could gather, and from completely cheating with other people's input, Hades fucked up. How much of her is human and how much is just a doll, I don't really know. Couldn't really concretely find it. For all I know, this is just a noggin in a robot body, and she's brainwashed to do whatever the fuck she's told. But this one's malfunctioned, and she isn't really too happy about the situation. Usually if they don't do what they're told, they're given knife hands and beheaded, so you don't got time for that, and you're getting out. The workers in the facility are mutants due to a gas leak, and all, except for a few of them admiring certain objects, will come and try to detain you. By murder. Basically of this shitty corporation kidnaps women off the street, gives them better body to do what they were likely going to do on OnlyFans anyway. But hey kid, you've beaten the game. You've done all the challenges, and you've seen everything there is to see in End Solas 7. Luckily for you, Haydee 2 has the wonderful gift that keeps on giving. Don't like the sexed up look? Mods and censorship got you covered. Like the sexed up look? Mods and lack of censorship got you covered. We're not restricted to models though. At the time of this video, there's a few more maps out there that show some promise for the future of the modding scene. One that has you trying to deactivate 10 hotspots before escaping. A good introduction to the concept of switching between Hades to accomplish a goal, some having more abilities than others. It utilizes some map loops, some light platforming, and some trolling I'll never forgive.
Checking. Access denied.
One that literally just pulls a miniature version of the mansion incident while stripping you of all your weapons. The gimmick on this one is lighting. Some puzzles utilize it, enemies react differently with and without it. I want this poster on my wall, one that aspires towards the design of Haydee 1, bringing back the platforming, going so far as to force you out of your fetish mod to play as the OG robot. Fuck you. One that indulges in the shooting and goes for the more classic corridor approach. It's meh. One that keeps with the same aesthetics of the base game while offering a brand new map and puzzles. One to look at yourself. One to shoot stuff and fuck your frame rate. And more. What are you waiting for? This shit's like the cost of a Big Mac in Alaska. Oh fuck, am I banned now?
Not a shill.